Press this way. Well, and now for something completely different. My background is I've worked in the tourism business all my career, and I'm particularly interested, like Rohit, in the future and understanding the changing circumstances in which you perform your role and function. I just want to remark, however, I'm still somewhat sort of thinking through the implication. I live 150 miles west of London, and I can see that I have a chance now of living to at least 120 or something like that. So the good news is I just step out of my door and go to Terminal 55 of Heathrow and just catch the machine that's available there. My presentation, we're really going to start to focus on the impact of climate change on tourism. And you heard from Dr. Pachauri a summary of the science, and we're not here at this event to debate the science. But as he pointed out, tourism is both a victim and a contributor to climate change. And he's essentially laid a challenge to us, didn't he? He said, are we going to be perceived as part of the problem or part of the solution? Now, it's as if at the moment planet Earth has a fever. James Lovelock, the famous scientist who created the term Gaia, but basically proved that the Earth is a living organism, has suggested that's exactly what is going on right now. We have an Earth that has a fever. And the number I want you to take away from this is the number 2 degrees centigrade. That is the increase in the average global temperature of the Earth over pre-industrial levels, beyond which we really cannot afford to go. If we heat up the average temperature of the planet by 2 degrees centigrade, all kinds of things start to happen which will undermine our ability to offer our guests a quality experience. We will be dealing with hazards. Dr. Pachauri spoke about this. We will be dealing with species extinctions. I also live in British Columbia, Canada, and we sell our visitors the prospect of seeing killer whales, caribou, all kinds of beautiful animals in the wild, in a natural forest, which currently is being systematically destroyed by a tiny little animal called a pine beetle, no bigger than a grain of rice. And the prospects in 2020, 2050 of still having those beautiful killer whales cruising our waters is probably very limited. But the other number I want you to remember is that we actually have a lot less wriggle room than we like to think. The temperature of the Earth has increased by 0.8 of a degree centigrade since the Industrial Revolution, and is destined, even if we turn off all the light bulbs, to continue to increase by another 6 degrees. So we only have about 6 degrees, if you like, of wriggle room in which to play. So the Earth has a temperature, so it's logical to ask, what is the cure? And the scientists are pretty well agreed on this. Some governments are pretty well agreed on this, that we have to act now. We have to stop the amount of emissions that are going into the atmosphere quite drastically. By 2020, we have to have reduced them by 25%, not over what we're doing today, but what we did in 1990. And one of the challenges I have with climate change is that all kinds of stats and numbers are thrown at you, and they're usually in the form of percentages. And what I'm going to try and do today is just show you what this actually means in terms of absolute numbers. And then by 2050, which is a nice long way away, we're all going to be living forever in this hot Earth, interesting prospect, we have to reduce our emissions by 80%. But I commend you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. You've made a conscious decision to participate in an event which is looking at some very tricky issues. You want to learn, you want to share your experiences, you want to take responsibility, you want tourism to be part of the solution. And I would argue that in Asia Pacific, this is a historic day. Because as Dr. Pachauri has said on another occasion, not on that videotape, but we have to act, we have to start making serious changes to the way we live now. Not tomorrow, not the year after, not when we're fully bionic people, but today. So let's start looking just at where does tourism fit in this? How are we going to be a part of the solution as well as part of the problem? And I commend the UNWTO, Jeffrey is here, he'll be speaking later, on commissioning some work to say, okay, let's try and get a fix on just what part of the problem we contribute. And they commissioned a study to estimate tourism's carbon footprint. Now, this is a global figure. As you can see, of the 26.4 billion tons of CO2 emitted, our industry overall contributes approximately 5%. And I say approximately because, frankly, we still haven't yet got very refined methodologies for measuring our footprint. The good news is there are people out there, and I think there's a gentleman in the room, who is developing very sophisticated models of taking our tourism satellite accounts that we worked so hard to generate to show the economic value of tourism, that can be used as input to create much more accurate and credible statements of our carbon footprint. The problem, however, with these global numbers is that there's enormous regional variation. There are no simple fixes, simple solutions for what we're talking about. And so what I might say about the national situation may not apply, for example, to Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific is different to Europe, and so on and so on. So we really do need to start getting a little bit more rigorous. Now, everyone in this room is familiar with this graph from the WTO. It shows that how buoyant we are. We've used this to gain credibility as an industry. And we still talk consistently about growing tourism by the number of people who travel. And I would suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, we have to wean ourselves off a preoccupation with volume. We almost have to take our politicians who love being able to report that traffic was up last year by 5% or whatever it might be, and almost delete that and start to talk about the revenue, the yield growing, and not the volume. If you look to 1990 on that graph, there were approximately 460 million international arrivals. And the UNWTO are confidently predicting that by 2020, we will have quadrupled that number. That's a very significant rate of growth with enormous implications for the carbon footprint. So here we have it written on the wall, in the sky, if you like. The problem that we're facing is our obsession with volume suggests that we might grow by a factor of 4 times between 1990 and the year 2020. But very recently, we've come to realize that we at the same time are being asked to reduce the emissions associated with that travel by 25% over 1990 levels. There's a bit of a gap here, a bit of a conundrum, and a real challenge. And it's that, I would suggest, is why tourism is being given a lot of press. We like sometimes think it's bad press. Aviation particularly has been targeted. I agree with that. But the challenge we have is that the story we are telling is somewhat of a defensive one. We're consistently saying in the aviation sector, well, we're just 2%. We make it possible for the global economies to grow. We spread wealth from the north to the south. We want an exemption almost. Unfortunately, the reality is that it's not 2% everywhere. That's 2% as a global average. And we know that aviation and international travel has only scratched the surface of the total global market. And in London, and you may or may not believe these figures, I took them from the London Climate Action Plan, where they have done 2 carbon plans in London. The first one, they didn't count anything to do with aviation. Aviation was left off. It was left off the Kyoto Protocol and so on. The second one that they did last year, it's just recently been published, they estimated the carbon emissions associated with London's 5 airports. and showed that aviation actually contributes 34%. Now, I spoke to a gentleman from the aviation community yesterday, and he said, "You're kidding, it can't be." And I'm not in a position to be able to say whether it is or it isn't. But the perception of the folks in London now is that aviation is a very serious contributor. Now, do we go defensive again, or do we go positive? Without aviation, London literally wouldn't exist. It couldn't sustain the financial centre that it is without aviation. So why am I making this point? I'm not here to knock aviation. I'm utterly part of the travel industry. What I am saying is we're going to need to be, as an industry, a lot more rigorous in our storytelling, a lot more honest in our storytelling, and engage the total community in facing this challenge. Because there isn't a single person in this room, and I know you're a biased lot, who wants to stop traveling. It's part of our life now, and it's the lifeblood of our global economy. But we have to start being rigorous in how we measure our own footprint, how we communicate positive stories about how we're going to shrink it, and how we engage the rest of the community in that. Now, I think Rohit did an amazing job of showing you just how exciting and complex and interrelated, interconnected the world we live in really is. And again, I urge us not to just focus today on the box called climate change, because all of those factors that are listed up there next to that perfect storm are utterly interdependent on one another. And the truth of the matter is, for the first time in human history, I would argue, we really haven't a clue how the future is going to develop. We can choose different scenarios, we can imagine different scenarios, and maybe we can create different scenarios. But again, in the tourism industry, do we have that, what I call eco or carbon literacy, to understand? Do we have an ability to really understand the interconnection of all of these factors and to be building our business with an adaptive capacity in it, with a resilience to what is really quite an unknown future?